this? Is it a one-trick English main or a one-trick Chinese main? Woohoo! Okay, that was unfair to both of them. Is of course Crackety playing as the Chinese versus DeMuslim on one of his favorite civs, the English. Lad lives in Sweden, clearly misses his homeland by the amount of times I catch him playing the English, especially on this map. I mean, this is kind of the El Clasico go-to matchup, isn't it? We see this one quite a lot here on Altai. Probably the most picked civs actually on Altai. Typically because of the way the map is so condensed and controllable, it allows for a later timing in the game. And if there's someone that the Chinese and the English can thrive at, it's that Imperial Plus timing. We'll see if they get there, though. Typically in this matchup, the Chinese player is looking to turn this into a win before Imperial Age arrives. The win condition for the English is typically Imp on. Because once you get to Imp, you get mass Lombo, you get mass Horseman, you get very hard to compete with gathering rates on your farms, as well as the gold you're going to get that will last forever. And also keep in mind that gold is quite finite on Altai. In fact, if you look on the mini-map right now, you can see we've got what? I think it's usually... Wow, is that 4? I thought it was sometimes 5 or 6. It's 4 small veins and then 2 large ones. It's not a lot, actually, when you think about it. So gold is going to drop very fast. Another reason why the English is an incredibly desirable pick. But the cool thing about the Chinese is with the very powerful eco early on and the way to efficiently boom via the Song Dynasty, they can arrive at a very scary timing before Imperial comes into the picture for the English. In fact, it can usually be just at the beginning of Imperial that the Chinese are striking your base and doing some serious damage. And this can be off the back of key factors like the Chugen Nu if you want to go for long feudal with Horseman Mass. It can also come down to Nesta B plus Palace Guard spam a little bit later on. And also the other thing to keep an eye out for that the Chinese can do really well in this matchup is go for keep drops. Depending on how you go for your composition in the mid-game, if you get a flood of Palace Guard and you reach your opponent's base and you block them in, which you can do quite well in Altai, you can get very potent keep drops, actually. Especially when you get spawns like this, where there's side/forward wood spawns. So let's say we get to 15, 16 minutes in and Crackety goes for a keep drop in this area. DeMuslim has no way of transitioning to new unit types. He has no way of fleshing out his farms. Wood will just be denied. And you can wrap around. So I would caution against DeMuslim leaving this too freely open, shall we say, because there is a risk that Crackety could target this area with a keep drop and then wrap around and wall you away from the reserve woods. We'll have to see, though. It's possible DeMuslim wants to be the aggressor to some degree, and typically what we see a lot of English players do at the moment, I think actually it's one big upside for the English that they do better than a lot of other civs, is the baited investment. What I mean by this is typically, because you almost always go for the council hall, you kind of want to use it to some degree, some sort of value. And what you usually actually see coming out of the English is they might invest into 2 to 4, maybe 5 Lombos, and then march across the field. The logic in this play is you want to force your opponent to do something more than that. So you'll invest in, let's say you invest in your 5 Lombos and 90 resources each. That's 450 resources. Your goal is to maybe kill a villager or 2, then force a response to your opponent dropping a stable, which is 150 resources, then building 3 or 4 horsemen, at which point they've actually expended more on a counter to your aggression. And they've done so on a trigger delay, right? So they're reactionary. So what ends up happening in those situations when the person's reactionary is instead of just taking like a clear count, they might not even have scouting vision. And if they don't have scouting vision, what they won't know is DeMuslim doubling down on Lombos, or is it just a distraction force of 4 or 5? It's a pretty cool play because the whole goal in doing this is that it's meant to burden your opponent's economy and let you unlock Castle quicker. Castle is an important timing in a lot of matchups for the English because it allows you to just get to that more potent eco point where not only do you have your secondary TC via the King's Palace, but your farms really start to pay for themselves in terms of the gathering rates. Speaking of those gathering rates and farms, I mean, so far, I'm kind of surprised that DeMuslim hasn't gone out to the deer. I think he's going to drop a TC there, though. Yeah, this is going to be a double TC play. This should be a TC drop on the deer. If it's not on the deer, I'm going to be like slightly cringing at this, though. The problem is that if you don't play deer here, you don't get a competitive castle age timing because you're investing wood into farm setup. And while farms are great returns once you have them, the initial cost of going into farms is what makes it pretty burdenous and definitely slows down your optimal castle times. We'll just have to see what he wants to do. The tech ups are going to come out from both sides. Crackety. Oh, hello. Well, well, honey, this is an interesting turn of events. Crackety is not going song at all. The only song he's going to sing is one of war. He's rushing towards Castle Age here. Something you don't see as frequently with the Chinese, but it's a cool idea. You can still come back for the song later when you go for an aggressive Barbican drop. And in the meantime, you're going to get premium Palace Guard units out that the English will have no answer to. Second TC is now going up for the Englishman over here. And it is going to be on the deer, so this will give the Muslim the best opportunity to reach castle. And you did notice him pull from the stone to the gold instead of the stone to the food. This was to optimize the point at which he started gathering on gold again, as I think he wants to get as much together as quickly as possible to a forward Castle Age. As soon as I say that, he stops gathering. Okay, ignore me entirely. He's going wheelbarrows. I think this plays to Crackety's advantage, actually. If the Muslim isn't rushing castle, it means that Crackety can get the first Palace Guard units out, or Lancers, and then also get in position to block his opponent out of gold. Now, it wouldn't be the end of the world for the Muslim, because he was fortunate enough to get a back gold spawn here. In fact, sometimes this feels outrageous. It looks like, yeah, his gold is so much more accessible, actually. Outside, to me, feels like one of those maps that might need some slight, like, retweaks because of details like this. It's phenomenally, brain-bogglingly, annoyingly, stupidly ridiculous. There was a lot of Lees in that. Because I guess, you know, we haven't been watching Lee Knox, so I've got to get my Lees somewhere. When someone gets a gold backup like this, and the other player doesn't. Because this is not comparative. That this is so far away. Because if they both spawned right side, this is balanced, right? But because Crackety spawned left side, his gold reserve should be back here. It's not. It's pretty cheapskate what the game done to him, actually. Now, fortunately for him, he's going to be the aggressor, so he won't have to worry too much. Actually, as soon as I say that, look who's being the aggressive one ahead of time. So it looks like the Muslim is uncomfortable with the fact that clearly his opponent must be teching up. Because otherwise, where are the horsemen? Where are anything? Where's the Barbican? So instead, the Muslim pulls 3 villagers to efficiently chop a tree line, and then they don't even chop it together. And although we make his way in, I think he made his way in too late here. The build-up is underway. It's actually going to be the Imperial Palace coming out of Crackety. Interesting choice. But this is a cool way of getting info without having to be in your opponent's base. Because Crackety has no info, right? Crackety's playing blind. He lost his scout. So this is kind of a cool pivot play to get vital info. But he has now been blocked out of that gold. And what did I say about the BS of this spawn? Crackety has no other access to gold. He does at least have taxation, but even that, like, how are you accessing that tax? You can't. Your lumber camp's on the ford. Really annoying, actually, for him. And Crackety. This is... This is a little bit, I don't know if it is, oh God, it doesn't even, no. They're idling, stop lying. Okay, he finally started to shift them on the berries himself. That's painful. Especially when you need so much food for the Palace Guard push, right? Now, that Palace Guard push, he'll have enough to get, probably enough to remove the outpost here and kill off the Lombos. This is important as well. If he didn't have that much gold, he'd be really screwed right now. He can get close to 10 Palace Guard, which will be good enough to get the Muslim out of his base. But keep in mind, the Muslim isn't expecting to stay here forever. He just wants to idle his opponent back at home while he booms up with this 2 TC. In fact, it might be free TC. No, there's no way. I think he's saving for a keep drop because he realizes what the Palace Guard are going to try to do. They will attempt to dive the base, and Palace Guard don't handle keeps very well due to the fact they have less missile resistance than other men-at-arms type units. Let's see this Palace Guard. They are starting to prove a little bit of a nuisance here. The Muslim best thing you can do is just trying to micro to get as best value out of the Lombos as possible, but overall, there isn't much value you can achieve here. Now the Palace Guard count is up to 7. Outposts will be torched. 3 villagers are going to be sacrificed. And Crackety has a window of opportunity to start moving forward here. But there is a concern that the Muslim might actually opt for the White Tower to give himself the defense point when his opponent rises. In fact, if he wanted, he could go for a White Tower here and then a keep on the other side, and nothing would get through. Alternatively, he just goes for the White Tower and then plays a 3rd TC anyway in this area, which I prefer in this situation. Logic there, by the way, is like, the way you have to think about King's Pass versus White Tower is, like, if you go White Tower and you want another TC still, sure, your TC time is going to be delayed. But realistically, what you're talking about here is, do you want to spend 800 resources or 700, right? The trade-off being that your TC is going to take slightly longer to get up, right? Because you didn't go for King's Pass, so it's not going to be there as quickly. But in exchange, what you are going to get is you're going to get you'll get a keep, which is going to defend you at a critical point quicker, and you're also going to get access to researching Network of Citadel sooner. And I feel like you need that right now, especially this Raiden. This Raiden's on point from Crackety, makes his way across the field. Palace Guard are going to be a nuisance. That's going to idle him off for the gold, and the Muslim, he hasn't gone for the back gold yet. He might have to, though, in this situation. The good news for him, at least, is with the attack speed aura and the fact that his TC's fired double the amount of arrows, Crackety can't dive. And this is actually one of the nuisances for the Chinese. In this matchup, if this was your timing to just rush Palace Guard, it's one of the harder civs to do it against, due to how high the effective damage is against this unit, right? Like, you're talking about TCs that do 9 range damage due to the fact that he got the Blacksmith's upgrade. And you only offset less than half the damage per arrow against a civ that fires double the amount of arrows. I mean, this is actually looking a bit scuffed. Last the Palace Guard going to be cleaned up, and I'm left with big question marks as to what Crackety really got out of this. He's still playing 1 TC, and it's still Tang Dynasty, right? So you see a lot, but what you don't see all that vision is a way to make this work beneficially. The walls are now going up, so this Palace Guard attempt is now going to be a big fat failure. And we're talking about a Chinese-English matchup at the 12 minutes where the English player has a dominant eco lead. He's 15 villages ahead. You don't say that often. He's also now guarding the relics because that's his next target. So that's at least one recovery point for Crackety, as he could go for the relic play. But so far, there's no temple drop, which is a little bit surprising to me. I think you need to get some sort of eco upside, because right now you're playing clearly from behind. And yeah, there's some fair points being discussed around, like, some sort of siege. I agree. Like, when you want to dive, especially the English base, like, other civs, you can kind of just get away with the dive of Palace Guard. But you're up against mass Lombos, double TC fire, villagers that can also attack you as well. Like, just Palace Guard alone isn't going to cut it. Imagine one nest of bees here against all these Lombos. Because that's the thing. That's the awkward issue for Demuslim. He doesn't have any cavalry. He has 0 ways of addressing siege. You want to know why you can't go nest of bees, folks? It's this detail. Like, Crackety, he went for the Imperial Palace. And I kind of understood the logic behind it, right? The vision it gives you on Altai is absurd. Like, you're going to see basically half of the battlefield that matters, right? That's the cool thing. But in this matchup, with this composition, a nest of bees does so much more for you. So you can't help but feel like not going Clock Tower is a missed trick. Another issue is because you want to go for the Monastery to try and get his eco upside, he can't just rush a Siege Workshop now. He doesn't have the wood income. In fact, if you look at the count right now, he needs all these people working on food just to afford this Palace Guard push. Palace Guard push that is ineffective now. I think the window is kind of passed. And you can see Demuslim, because he survived the dive, he doesn't even need to waste his tech up on the White Tower. He can just go for the King's Pass and go for a keep afterwards. Stone's looking good. So now, Demuslim is at 3 TC effective. Crackety playing as the Chinese is at 1. Crackety once again trying to get in. Luckily for him, Demuslim did not pull villagers to repair. Could have easily done so there. He's starting to produce the Knights. Has got the Lombos to defend in the meantime. Crackety is at least going to carve up a few villages for his troubles. But overall, this Palace Guard count, again, it's just not reaching critical mass. I mean, this feels like watching an HRE player build a Burgrave and then just not produce every other minute, right? It's kind of where I feel like we're at here. The count for Crackety, it's up to 15 total, but only about 2/3 of that are involved in the assault each time. And the Lombo count is still unanswered because he keeps chasing Eco instead. Yeah, you can talk about idle Eco, but apparently that has to be talked about on both sides because Crackety, oh my god, he doesn't know. There's so much awkwardness happening back at base for Crackety. We had the issue around the sheep where he had idle time there, but he didn't notice. Now we've got a clear point where you should notice. 19 villagers idle, but he's so distracted trying to micro in the dive to fight villagers that he hasn't noticed that he's not gathering food anymore. I mean, he needs to move out for something. He needs to either transition into farm, so he needs to go for extra deer. It's going to be berries, though. And no wheelbarrow either, so every time he walks out, this is hurting. Crackety's saying he'd already closed out the game in his mind by then. I can kind of see that feeling here. I think in hindsight, it's like the Imperial Palace play is so tempting, but no siege meant that you were never able to answer the Lombos. And with no answer to the Lombos, it just felt like these Palace Guard got maybe a third of the value that they were intended to. I mean, in an ideal world, if you have a good enough gathering, you can go for like Yuan Dynasty, then the Palace Guard are threatening again. But that's an 1,800 resource investment at a stage where you can't afford it because you're going to be sacrificing, what, almost 15 Palace Guard to get there? Now we'll just reach Vibe Town for Demuslim. He'll be able to re-wall himself in, fully safe. Drops the monastery, starts looking towards the relics. Now, of course, that is an area in which at least Crackety has an edge. But he needs some sort of rebuild. His Lombos are actually starting to become a nuisance. They're moving towards his base, and Crackety is being caught in the middle of a transition into Lancers. That's another thing that's going to cost him dearly as well. And he doesn't really have much food in reserve either. Lombos are going to do reasonably well against the Lancers as well. Palings. Cute little play there. Doesn't work out that well for Demuslim in the end. Until he moves to the other side. But once again, it just doesn't seem to be working for him. I think actually maybe Demuslim gets more value out of just attacking out right there. But at least this is a fight in Crackety's base. So Demuslim now knows what's coming next. He can prep the counter. And it's a pretty trivial counter for him. Just mass spears at this stage. Or go for knights of your own, because either works, remember. You're the English, so you have the attack speed aura, which means your knights are going to come out ahead. Crackety needs to find a way in. These are only wooden palisades, so he can still breach through, and it's definitely to his value to do so. Dog over here looks like he's playing dead. Little wolf that always could and always would survive. Love to see it. Oh, the race is on. The race is on. Someone get some action music right now. Crackety, no! You were meant to bring balance. You were meant to be the chosen one, monkey boy. But you were deceived by the wolf. No extra relic for him. Demuslim will claim his second one. Knights also raiding out. They even help out afterwards, after they've killed the monk. And a raid now coming in. Demuslim needs to repair the wall, needs to get troops in position. He's moving across now. It's only a small group of knights, but in choke points, this could work out to his advantage. Crackety, if he gets stuck between these buildings, a few knights will hold him at bay. Palings as well are being prepped. You can see the push around, looking to dive onto the villagers. A lot of knights coming in from Crackety. Attack speed aura is going to be there for the defensive force. Several villagers are going to be sacrificed, but we have to remember Demuslim has a clear eco lead. He can afford to lose villagers still. Crackety needs to get as much value as possible. But right now, clustering the knights together like this feels like it's hurting him. He needs to spread them out and chase after individual villages. I think that's where he could do better. Instead, I'd argue he got minimum value out of this. And sure, it looks good in terms of like raw eco kill, right? But like in terms of what this cost him, and also now what's going to be remaining, right? Because the knight count now for Demuslim is at 12. You've just lost the entire cavalry battalion. What happens now if Demuslim comes to your base? I think that's exactly why Crackety's going hard on the stone. Needs to get some defenses up. ASAP. I gotta say, like that fight could have been even worse for him if Demuslim had actually bothered to get at work of citadels, but I don't know if he's realized he still hasn't researched it yet. Now he's gonna go on the offensive. Knights are marching out. Tree lines are at least protected by the wooden palisades, and there is gonna be enough stone for a keep drop for Crackety, but I think if he gets forced to drop a defensive keep here, it plays to Demuslim's advantage. If anything, you want to be able to move out onto the field and drop a keep in Ben's base. Problem is, where can you drop it? Like, this is one of the double-edged sword issues of Altai. It's an anti-keep map like this because there's limited space for Demuslim to utilize, so there's limited space for Crackney to drop an aggressive keep. It's actually infuriating to think about. When all the farms start to flesh out, there's nowhere for you to actually plop one down because your opponent's going to have basically taken every piece of room and filled it with either farms or military production buildings. Oh my god, that's so annoying to think about. Another annoying detail for Crackney. When you compare those farms, he actually hasn't built a single farm yet. So that awkward transition is coming down the line. And that's why he's going to have to fight to get control of the mid-map. Maybe go for some ball play. Maybe try and find the extra deer. I wouldn't actually mind seeing Crackney move south side. Maybe drop a stone wall. Okay, the stone walls are coming from the other side. Oh, that's unfortunate. I was about to say, if he actually stonewalled this side, maybe aggressively, he could get double ball, and then Crackney could offset the farm transition time. Instead, he's going to have to hard invest, though. It looks like he has been gathering for exactly that, but by doing so, it means that militarily he's fallen behind. Network of Citadels is now being researched by Demuslim. Wouldn't be surprised if we're going to get an aggressive keep drop as well. He's hard on that stone, and with his knights in position, he could easily drop a keep around this berry patch / wood line. Crackney, meanwhile, continues to hoard. Sitting on a decent amount of stone, but no use for it yet. Walls are starting to be breached by the knights. Crackney is giving up a lot of room. Whoops. Nice little pinch there. Nestabees finally entering the fray. The thing that Crackney needed a very long time ago. He's at least getting in mass now. Not the worst idea, considering your opponent's going to mass knights and probably some ranged element. We can see it's going to be probably longbows plus crossbows here. I think it's actually mainly going to be crossbows coming. Military Academy also being prepped. I do see a very big burden in terms of pop cap here. I mean, Crackney just can't really afford to mass troops that fast. That's why he hasn't gone for a military academy yet. It just doesn't have any purpose here with how low your income is. And the issue for Crackney is he now has an army that if it ever gets spent, he's dead. Like, this comp takes a while to build up. Lancers aren't cheap. Nestabees aren't cheap. Neither it keeps. That's exactly what's going to keep Crackney in this game. I think actually he's going for a keep drop on the central sacred site. Problem with this is you need more stone. You want to be able to turn this into a castle crawl. You might be contested in this area as well, but didn't move. Ben has a big enough force to do so. Looks like he's going to march west side, though, into the opening and peels off just in time. That's important there. If he'd gone into that opening, Crackney would have pursued. And no, he doesn't realize. Oh, they auto-aggroed. Mistakes made. Several knights do go down. That gives the opening that he needs. Crackney is going for the aggressive keep. He'll get access to additional stone, and that'll allow him to begin a little boogaloo into the base of Demuslim. At least that is the hopes for him. Walls are at least going to be restructured here. Lombos can reach in and punish a few of these villages before the Nestabees show up. But for Nestabees, Crackney might have damn well done what he needed to here. It's step one in a long road. But that road, there's plenty of shortcuts in it, and it comes down to where you place these keeps. New Siege Workshop at the front side to make sure even more Nestabees are coming. A quick breach through the palisades. Demuslim will have to make his stand. Counterweight Trebuchet does come out, so we'll be able to start addressing the keeps immediately. However, the Nestabees remain relatively unaddressed. Only one Spirald in play for the English. Defensive keep now coming up from Demuslim. Will prevent any sort of flank round. Will also prevent a keep crawl here. Critical detail. It means that Crackney has to waste time making space for additional keeps. Lancers riding in a bit ambitious here. Nestabees moving in range. Lombo mass. Ready to be spread thin here. Nestabees are going to chase him back. Hard for him to stand his ground right now. Knight's going to try to wrap around, but the Spearmen are going to keep him at bay. And the butchering continues under the villager line. They're going to be forced out as well. However, the Nestabees are just not tanky enough. Crackney, these are not clock town Nestabees. Only 140 health. Easy pickings for Demuslim. And that is a heavy hit to what Crackney was trying to achieve here. He'll go for another keep drop, but this one is going to fail. It was a nice idea, but he went a little bit too fast. He stuck his foot down on the pedal, but the engine just spun out. sputtered instead of purring here. And now he's looking like a tiny kitty. Keep's going to be taken out. Crockety's going to be pushed back. This was his Ura. His Ura has fallen flat, though. Less an Ura and more Ura. A nice idea by Crackety, but always so difficult to achieve these keep crawls when you don't have the space. And very difficult to achieve when you have to rush past range combatants like this. That's going to be it. I don't think Crackety has a way back in. Frustrating game for Crackety nonetheless. Some gaps in gathering on the food, a lack of beneficial gold reserves, and just kind of a missed window, really. Not having the Nest of Bees when you need them alongside the Palace Guard really did cost him this mid-game. And this means we're arriving in late game. Late game that you can't match. I can hear the typing right now. It looks like this one is done sparse. GG gets cool. Demuslim takes the win. And Crackety says, I asked Demuslim how many villages he had. He said 127. And that's a GG point. I mean, you're playing Chinese for about half that count. I don't blame you at that stage. It's a nice idea, though. The whole idea of, like, Castle being the strong point for the Chinese, so you try to reach it even quicker instead of stopping off for eco gains via Song Dynasty. I just think that the key issue in this game is maybe in the Imperial Palace play. The Imperial Palace play, in theory, is cool, and I'm a really big fan of seeing it. I just think for the strategy that was intended here, Clock Tower with 1 or 2 Nest of Bees being pushed quickly probably offers up a better opportunity to end this game than the Imperial Palace choice.